It's the panel presented by Sport Chek here in downtown Vancouver in beautiful British Columbia. Tony Brar here alongside Jack Michaels and Bob Stauffer. And for the record, we did say golf shirts, guys. It's beautiful here.
I may be guilty of not listening on that particular term, but...
Guys, obviously the week of the draft, the 2019 NHL Draft, we had our mock draft on Monday. You guys both took Philip Broberg. How are you guys feeling about that pick? And maybe a two-part question here, guys. What are some maybe intriguing names that you may look at if Broberg is either off the table or somebody who may be just too good to pass up?
Well, for me, I think it's going to come down to Philip Broberg or one of a number of U.S. forwards that could be available at that position. Yeah. And I also believe one of two of Kirby Dach or Dylan Cousins will also be in the 8-hole. So I think out of those three groups, Broberg, U.S. forwards, and Cousins or Dach, yeah, I think that's the multiple choice I'd go with, yeah. A, B, or C. I don't know how Bob's feeling about it, but for me, this draft begins at number 3. After the first two of Kakko and 2 and Hughes at 1, Bob, I think it's anyone's ballgame.
Yeah, I do think there's a second group of 3 players with Alex Turcotte, who's out of that National Development Program, along with Bowen Byram, and I've got Kirby Dach in the top 5. So I'm sort of excluding those 5 guys. I do think there's a couple. I mean, Matthew Boldy's an interesting guy out of that U.S. National Development Program. I expect Trevor Zegras gone when the Oilers pick as well at 8. I think he goes 6 or 7. Does somebody step up and take Caulfield? The guy can flat out score. Broberg, obviously, there's been a lot on Broberg really over the last 3 weeks since we were in Buffalo. I mean, it was pretty obvious that we're here in Vancouver's interested in Broberg as well. They're at 10, so you can never have enough, left-hand puck-moving defenseman that can skate, and he is a guy that has a higher ceiling than all the Oilers' defense prospects, with the possible exception of Evan Bouchard. So a little different dimension. But yes, Broberg is sort of on everybody's mocks right now, but there's some good American forwards, and I do think Cousins would be the guy. I don't see Dach sliding, but I could see Cousins potentially being available at 8 as well.
Hey, gentlemen, just throwing this out there, is Cole Caulfield really the question mark or the wild card in the first 15 or so picks? Because he had 72 goals, and a lot of people attributed Jack Hughes for a number of those goals, but he had 9 goals in 7 games without Jack Hughes. I mean, this guy can really put the puck in the net, but it's his size that is a big question mark.
I think Cole Caulfield is more of a lock to go before number 8 than Alex Turcotte. And this is where Bob and I kind of differ a little bit. I think Bob's got a 5, and then 3, 4, and 5 can be in variance. My variance extends all the way from 3 to 10 or 11. I mean, for example, I think a guy like Alex Turcotte might be edging his way out of the top 10, based on different things you hear about who's been the best game in, game out for that U.S. National Development Program. There's an argument to be had, well, if he's not shining amongst the top 2 or 3 on his own team, how can you take him 3 at the draft? But I will say this, and this is to Bob's point, there's so many talented players that the one guarantee I think we can give you on this panel is that the Oilers are going to have a couple of really good choices to make at 8, and it's going to be a hard choice. I think, would you not agree there? It's going to be a difficult choice.
Yeah, I do, and I wonder whether or not somebody tries to entice Edmonton to maybe drop back a spot, depending upon, what happens if the outside chance that a guy like Colson ends up going somewhere in the top, maybe Detroit steps up and takes him 6. Of course, he's under contract for 2 more years over in Russia. So, and Caulfield, you know what, Jack, you remember, we were talking about Alex DeBrincat. I went in and saw Connor McDavid, and I thought the Oilers were going to get Dylan Strome at 3 in 2015 when the Oilers were in Toronto, went in to see them play, and then when we were in Pittsburgh. And Alex DeBrincat, to me, 50 goals that year, you got, 50 plus the next year. To me, size is irrelevant. Now, some would say come playoff time it matters a bit, but you got to get to the playoffs too, and you need guys to score. So Caulfield to me is a swing guy. I could see somebody taking Caulfield
at 3
that high. You
really could?
Oh yeah,
yes.
You could. It makes sense from that end.
And it reminds me of the draft, Bob. Remember when Barkov went 2, and that kind of kicked off? Okay, all of a sudden, the Oilers were in a position where they were looking at a couple guys they didn't expect to be looking at. And I quite frankly think there's a very good chance that could come in Friday night. Whether it's a Russian forward that Bob's talking about or someone else. Or Caulfield. I do think there is going to be a wild card. Someone going inside maybe the top 5 or 6 that none of us really suspected would be.
Well, one thing is for certain, we'll hear 31 names called on Friday and then many more on day 2 on Saturday. But the NHL draft weekend has also been a popular time for trades with some added flexibility for some teams in and around the salary cap. Bob, what's the latest that you've heard?
TSN's Darren Drager reported about Jesse Puljujärvi and basically a trade request, and that has been substantiated by Puljujärvi's agent, Marcus Lato, just saying it might be best for both parties, both for Puljujärvi and for the Oilers, for a change. We'll see. To me, one of 3 scenarios exist, guys. They work on salvaging the relationship with a new general manager, new head coach. That's option 1. Options 2 is trading Puljujärvi potentially for a like-minded prospect that maybe hasn't gained traction. And option 3, maybe ends up playing back in Europe this year.
But Tony, your point about, trades going on at the draft, I mean, in Bob and I's time together, we've seen 2 significant ones that kind of reshape the course of NHL history. There was the draft in Minnesota where Brent Burns went to San Jose. And, the Wild never really got over the hump. The Sharks have been to a Stanley Cup final, and Brent Burns is annually the league's leading scorer among defensemen. The other one, of course, this city reminds me of it, when Corey Schneider was dealt to New Jersey, and that mismanagement of the goalie situation with Luongo and Schneider really has Vancouver now with several years in a row. They're in the midst of a bit of a rebuild and trying to get Alex Edler signed. Otherwise, the things could really get blown up here in Canucks country.
Well, some interesting contracts have been signed throughout the NHL this past week. We'll keep it locked in on EdmontonOilers.com and Oilers TV with all your NHL draft updates. For Bob Stauffer and Jack Michaels, I'm Tony Brar signing off from Vancouver with the panel presented by Sport Chek.